I
Junior
found it.
Goldman, what do you want to debate today, man?
Trans women, I don't think they should be using women's bathrooms.
Why?
Well, because when you get right down to the biological facts, they're not biological women. So I just think that it could make a lot of women uncomfortable. Like, the bathrooms, the locker rooms, even in sports. I think that it's I don't have an issue with somebody who wants to identify however they want to identify,
Mm-hmm.
but when they want to start taking over women's spaces without the consideration of women, that's where I have an issue.
Okay, so if women are okay with them being in their spaces, then it's fine.
Yeah, but women are not okay with it.
They are. Last time I went to a club, a trans woman was with a group of other cis women, and they all went into the
That's
bathroom.
anecdotal. You can't. That's anecdotal. You can't just take one situation that you had at a club and paint everybody with it.
Wait, so like in that scenario, do you think that that trans woman should not be able to? She has to wait outside the woman's bathroom, with her friends who are going in the bathroom, and they're like powdering their nose and shit like that. And the trans woman, who doesn't look like a man, by the way, has to go into the men's restroom.
If it's the less of two evils, yeah.
Yeah, the two evils would be forcing a trans woman into a men's restroom where she could probably get assaulted.
Well, this goes both ways. If it's a trans woman, she's still biologically a male. He could assault, he, she, whatever you want to call it, can assault a woman.
Okay, so we have a lot more cases of trans women being assaulted than trans women doing the assaulting in bathrooms. Can you give me a case of a trans woman assaulting somebody in a bathroom?
I'm sure I could find one, but that's not the point. My point is
It's
not
the point, if that's what
my
we're
point.
basing like our entire policies position off of. And by the way, if like let's say we did the opposite, the same would hold true for the opposite. So if I were to like just force trans women to be in the the men's restroom, and then trans men to be in a woman's restroom, what's stopping me or you from walking into a woman's restroom and just saying that you're a trans man?
Well, I think that's an argument that's good. That's one that I would tell you that is also another scary thing. What if I, a straight male, or you might
Mm-hmm.
call me a cis male, whatever, decides that I'm going to identify as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and I go walking into the woman's bathroom or
Mm-hmm.
locker room or something? Do you think that's okay? I don't think it's okay.
Okay. Well, the intent is the problem that we're talking about here. If you're going in there to just use the bathroom, wash your hands and leave, that's okay. If you're going in there to prey on somebody, that's not okay. You should go to jail for that. I think this is pretty standard. And that doesn't
How do
just
you
apply to
know? How
trans
do you?
women. That applies to lesbian women who goes in the women's restroom. That applies to gay men who goes into the men's restroom. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're attracted to the individual. Like, go into the bathroom that you're comfortable with and don't assault people. And don't obviously don't creep on them either.
Well, yeah, but you can't. You don't know what these people are doing. You don't know if if it's like kind of philia. You don't know for what reason somebody's actually trans. You don't know, if they even are trans. You don't even
Oh,
know.
so how do you
They could.
enforce that rule if you don't even know if
How do
somebody's
you?
trans?
I'm saying to play it on the same. Why don't they have trans restrooms
Uh,
and
well, like if you
just
have,
make it to where they have
yeah,
their own spaces?
yeah, that would be just segregation, right? So like in this case, like why not allow them? You haven't given a good case for them to not use the women or men's restrooms. So why would we then just create a new restroom, especially for 1% of the population, right? When we're talking about like how would you enforce, like this is like the problem I'm having, like how would you enforce a rule that says that trans women can't use women's bathroom and trans men can't use men's bathroom? How would you enforce that?
To enforce that rule would be, uh, well, first of all, we'd have to go to step one before we went to step two, which would be, I don't think that we should have to enforce a rule as much as we would have to respect women's spaces more. It doesn't matter what percent it is, because you don't know what the person's intent is. You can't say, "Oh, it's like this," but you don't know what the person's thinking. You
Okay.
don't know what the trans person's thinking.
Sure.
You're assuming that every trans person is just going in there to wash their hands. You don't know if they're going in there
Wait,
to
you
check
realize I
out
can apply
women.
this same, so I'm gonna come back to the question real quick on how would you enforce it, but I'll ask this question. How do I know what a gay man is thinking when I'm using the bathroom? in the men's restroom? How do
You
I
don't, but
know?
he has the same genitalia as you
I
do.
don't know that.
He's biologically,
I don't know that. I'm not looking at his
you
genitalia.
said gay, not trans.
Well, I'm just assuming that he's gay just based off of how he looks, like how he's walking, how he talks and stuff like that, how he dresses. I'm just assuming that, but I could be wrong.
Well, you should be making assumptions,
Yeah, exactly. So we shouldn't be
especially
basing
in,
a we shouldn't be
especially in a
making assumptions.
discussion,
Yeah, we should like
especially
not
when
be
you're
making
trying,
assumptions based on
especially when you're
individuals who
trying to
go into
make,
the bathroom. We
especially when
should
you're
just
trying
be
to make a
going into the
debate.
bathroom. We should just be going into the bathroom to just use the bathroom, not assuming that the person next to us is like a female or a male, what their genitals look like. That's kind of creepy, right?
It is creepy when someone has the opposite genitals as me and they're in the bathroom next to
How
me. I
would you
do think
know
it's
that they have
creepy.
the opposite genitals?
You don't, but you don't know what's floating in their mind. How
Okay.
would you know that the trans person is not some sick, perverted person that's using it as an excuse to go hang
And
out in women's
how do they
bathrooms
know
and
that
pick
you're
them
not
up?
some sick that the woman is not some sick perverted person or like a serial killer or something like that? How do they know that? They don't.
Well,
They just trust the society around them that they're not going to be like stabbed to death or something like that, right?
but they're
And they
of the
just use the
same
bathroom.
sex.
That's what we
A
do. It doesn't
biological,
matter what
a
the sex is.
biological,
They don't know.
a
You don't
biological, a
know what
biological man is much stronger than
we
a woman
don't
and has
know.
it has
Okay.
the
Okay.
ability
All
to
right.
rape her.
Okay. Should this person go into the men's restroom or the women's restroom? If you saw this person going into the women's restroom, you'd be like, "What the fuck," right?
Not if he's biologically a woman.
How would you know? How do you know if that's a biological woman? If you see him walk into the restroom, how would you know?
I don't know, but what are you trying to say? Because somebody can pass is something that's okay?
Yeah, I'm asking you, is it good or bad for this person to go into a woman's or woman's restroom?
If he's biologically or she's biologically a woman, then it's
Okay,
good.
cool. So how do you determine whether they are biologically woman?
Well, for one, not allowing trans people to go into females' bathrooms would be a good start.
Okay.
Because
How do
then
you
they
know
wouldn't be
that this
going in
person is
there
trans
to
or not?
begin with.
How do you know if this person is trans or not when you see them going into the restroom?
I understand your question, but my debate is not whether I can tell you whether somebody is
That's the
male or
entire
female
debate.
by what the
That's the entire
that's
debate.
not my angle on it. That may be your debate, but that's not my angle
It's
on
the
it.
entire argument is about whether we should
No, the entire
allow,
argument is that
whether
is
we
that
should allow a trans man or trans woman to go into the bathroom that they identify with. That's the whole argument. So I'm asking you specifically, if you saw this person going into a woman's restroom, it is obviously the case that you would say, yeah, that person should not be going into the woman's restroom because a woman would feel uncomfortable with that, right?
well, I don't necessarily agree with that
Okay, so this
because
person
I
should
don't
go
believe
into the
that
woman's restroom. Okay, cool.
I don't think I came out swinging saying I don't believe that transgender people should be going into those bathrooms. So whether I can identify whether that person by the way they look, that doesn't matter to me. What matters
Okay,
is if that's biologically a female, then they should be using
okay. So
the female
the argument
bathroom.
is moot. Like this is just like opinions that we have, and we're not going to enforce them. We're not going to violate the rights of anybody. Everybody should just use the bathroom that they're comfortable with because there's no way that we can restrict them, right?
No, I'm saying that it should be. I'm thinking. I believe it should be a law. It should be
Okay.
restricted.
I'm asking. Now we're back to this argument. How would you enforce that law?
Oh, you're saying that people would just break the law and go do what they want anyway
I'm
because they
asking
can
how
pass?
what kind of law would that look like? I'm just asking you. You want to make it a law. You're doing a
I
law
said
that
I
says
think that
people.
we should have bathrooms if they're
Uh-huh.
that uncomfortable in a male or they're that uncomfortable going into a bathroom. I don't think they should be making women uncomfortable. I said, why don't we have a different bathroom
Okay.
that trans people can use? Wouldn't that
Okay.
be fair?
Okay, cool. So you would make a law that requires building codes to include trans women, trans men bathrooms, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Now, how would you stop a trans woman from going into the woman's restroom and not the trans woman's restroom? How
You
would
mean
you
if somebody
enforce?
wanted to like not follow the law is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Right.
How would you know that that's a trans woman going into the restroom?
Well, I can't, it's against the law to steal a candy bar, but I can't stop people from stealing candy bars. But I
Okay.
think the first
How would
step
you
is to
know
make
that
it.
somebody stole a candy bar?
What I'm trying to say is there are people that are going to break the law no matter what.
Okay. So how would you know that this person broke the law?
Are you saying because somebody's passable and I
Yes.
wouldn't be able to tell by looking?
Yes. How would you know?
In some cases, I wouldn't be able to know.
Yeah, it's unenforceable of a law. You would have to like violate their rights in order to know whether like somebody's breaking the law. Like
You're
like it's
assuming that they wouldn't follow the law in this debate.
yeah. I
There's
don't
going to
think
be people that
yeah,
break the law. No
I don't
matter
think
what.
that trans women want to have like their own bathrooms, because if everybody know that this bathroom is for trans women, wait, would the woman be allowed into the trans woman bathrooms, like the cis woman?
No.
How would you know
Absolutely
that
not.
they're trans? You can, like, this is completely unenforceable of a law. This would be like a waste of government resources. Because the only way to enforce this law would be to violate the rights of somebody, and therefore it shouldn't be a law.
You're right. I think that they should just go to their biological.
Yeah, and
bathrooms.
they don't want to, so they're just gonna go into the bathrooms that they feel comfortable
Well,
in.
they may not want to, but they're making their comfortability should not be more important than women's comfortability. Locker
Yeah, it
rooms,
should.
bathrooms. What about
Wait, yes, it should.
sports? You think?
Wait,
Are you
yes,
gonna actually
wait,
make an
hold on. It
argument that
should,
they can't force-
their own comfort should trump the comfort of other people who are in there. Because if we allowed other people's comfort to be able to exclude us from a space, then why did we just restrict that to gender? Why don't we do that for race? Didn't we do this during Jim Crow, where white people didn't feel comfortable being in the same bathroom as black people because they thought that black people were violent, and so they made like segregation laws that said black people, or segregation businesses were allowed to segregate as well, saying black people can't use the same bathroom because white people feel
but
uncomfortable.
That's a
Should we allow
horrible
to do that?
analogy because I'm talking about biological men and women.
Okay,
not
so
two
like if
people
we
of the same
base
sex.
it on your biological skin color, like what's the argument against that?
There's a huge difference between two different sexes and
Yeah.
two different
It's
colors
a
of skin.
difference without a
That's a
distinction.
horrible analogy.
Yeah,
if
no,
you're
it's
trying to
it's
make an
perfectly
argument that way.
analogous. Your argument was that if Group A feels uncomfortable with Group B being in the same space as them, in this case a bathroom is the space, then therefore that justifies Group B not being excluded from said bathroom. That's your argument. That is your argument. Unless you can give me some. Yes.
My argument is that you can say it's analogous all you want, but
It
it's
is.
really not.
You can't prove why it's not analogous. You're just saying it's not analogous.
Well, it's not analogous.
Your
because,
argument is that the
it's
condition
not-
holds that if Group A is uncomfortable with some member of Group B being in the bathroom, then that justifies excluding Group B from that bathroom. In this case, Group A is cisgender woman, and in the Group B is trans woman. I can just apply Group A to be white people, and in Group B to be black people. Tell me how that's not analogous. I would like to hear it.
Well, it might be analogous by nature,
Yeah.
like by the definition of analogous, but it's not a good analogy.
I don't. Tell
is
me
I
why.
guess what I'm going to say. Because I keep coming back to the same thing: is that there's a difference between the sexes. One's a male.
Yeah,
and
there
one's
is a
female.
difference. That's why it's analogy. That's the whole point of an analogy, is that there's there's differences,
But the
but the
difference of the color
conditions.
of skin
Wait,
is not the same
wait.
as
The
the difference
differences
of
are the differences
biological
exist.
sex.
The whole point of an analogy is to show that there is a difference, but the conditions are the same. As long as the conditions are the same, your logic would have to hold in these other cases. In the case of race, right?
No, that's how you're laying it out. But
that's
disagree.
just basic logic. You can just like not have like a
That's
logical
not being
deduction.
acknowledged. I
What about
can come up
intersex
with-
people? What bathroom do intersex people go into? What should
You know
they go
how
into?
rare it is to have an intersex.
You know how
person?
rare it is to be transgender? So,
Not
okay,
as rare as intersex.
gotcha. It's actually roughly around the same. Intersex people make up about 2% of the population. Trans people make up about 1.2% of the population. So for an intersex individual, which bathroom should they go into?
Even intersex people have a predominant biological gender.
Okay, so if an intersex
It's
person
never right
has
down- it-
okay, so you
it's
should go
never
based
right
off your
down-
genitals or your chromosomes. Which one?
How about both?
Okay, so if you have female chromosomes but you have a penis, then which bathroom do you go into?
You're reaching for something that's such an anomaly to
I don't
try
care
to
if it's an
make your
analogy.
point.
But trans people are an anomaly.
I said an anomaly.
Yeah. I didn't say, yeah, I accidentally said analogy. Anomaly. Trans people are an anomaly in like the whole group of America. So like you have no argument here. Intersex people are more likely to exist, or at least equal likely to exist as trans people. So I'm asking, if somebody is a trans person, you don't even know what your chromosomes are. You could, as a male, have XX chromosomes. You don't even know that.
That's another atypical thing.
Okay, it doesn't matter if it's atypical. I'm asking you if this atypical.
It does matter, because
wait, hold on.
You can't,
if
you
this
can't
atypical,
extremely
I got you. I understand.
Minority, and then try to apply it to a general situation.
Awesome. Now, if this atypical individual wants to go into a bathroom because they exist and they want to know, do I go into the male or female bathroom? Under your system, this atypical individual, which bathroom do they go into?
They would go into the bathroom that they're predominantly biologically what they are, a male or female.
Okay,
because
so what's predominant
situations? If you do your research, you're going to find out that there usually can be figured out whether they're male or female, even if they're born intersex.
Okay,
did you know that?
I got you. So if you have XX chromosomes and you have a penis, which bathroom, which sex is more dominant there? So you have female chromosomes and a male genitals. Which one?
Another thing, you're reaching for like these really extreme situations that are so.
Yes, I am.
So
now answer the question.
That you can't just grab these atypical situations.
Yes,
and try
I can.
To paint it. Okay. Well, you can, but it's not.
Okay, so answer the question.
It's a false equivalent. What you're doing is what's called a false equivalency.
I'm trying to get your understanding of what qualifies for somebody to go into a male versus female bathroom. So I'm asking you about intersex people now, because apparently we can't come to a conclusion on trans people. So now I'm talking about this other group of people, intersex people. We were already talking about 1%. We were already talking less than 1% of the population. So I don't know why you're making the distinction with intersex people now, when they also represent about 1% of the population. So I'm asking you. Okay, so if I have a penis, so the argument. So if I have a penis, I should go in the male's bathroom.
Yes.
Okay, so even if I'm biologically female, like I have female chromosomes, I should go into the male's bathroom because I have a penis, correct?
How common do you think that is?
I don't care how common it is. I'm just asking.
You don't care how common it is?
Yes, because the law. Wait, the law has to apply to everybody. If oh my God, I don't think you understand. So if
I do understand that you're trying to take this tiny little thing. The law
cannot have any. The law has to have. Do you know what a provision is in a law?
Yeah.
The provision in a law is specifically to target exceptions to the normal, right? If I say you cannot kill somebody, but here are some rare exceptions where you can kill somebody, like defense, self-defense and stuff like that, right? Even though that's a very, very small minority, you still have to have the law reflect those exceptions. So in the case of a person who is intersex, will they go to jail if they go into if their chromosomes are female and their genitals are male, or will they get fined or whatever if they go into the female bathroom but they have a penis but have female chromosomes? I'm asking you that specific question.
Okay, and I'm not going to answer that question.
I know you won't, because
it's so ridiculous to try to use that to base your argument off of.
Do intersex people not use the bathroom?
I can't substantiate. Yeah, it is. I can't substantiate something so rare.
Okay.
By actually going down that rabbit hole with you.
Okay, so intersex people don't use the bathroom. So intersex people can use whatever bathroom they want. I'm taking this as your position.
You can keep making this argument off this extremely rare.
I agree with you. Intersex people should be able to use whatever bathroom they want. You're not answering the question, so I'm assuming you don't have a position on intersex people, so they should be able to use whatever they want. Okay, we can move away from intersex people. So if you have a penis, you can go.
I answered the question.
Okay,
that intersex people are born dominantly one sex or the other.
Okay, so they should be able to use whatever bathroom they want. All right, cool.
They should be able to use the bathroom that they're biologically with that fits their biology. the same as I feel and everything else.
That's very vague. Their biology is two different things. It's either male or female. Which part of their biology? Their chromosomes, their hormones. What about their gonads? What about their reproductive system? What about their genitals? What about their brain sex? Those are 6 different types of sex when it comes to an individual's like makeup as they are developed in the womb. So which part are we like looking at? Are we looking at the genitals? Okay. What about the chromosomes? Okay. What about the hormones? Okay. I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, you're gonna try to figure out something that's so rare, and you're trying to use it as a thing.
You're the one that wants to make
don't-
laws on this, so I'm just trying to ask you what the law looks like, and you don't seem to have any idea on how to enforce or create this law.
Well, I certainly don't think that grabbing something so atypical and trying to use it to win a debate is
Okay.
not. I don't
Cool.
think that.
So let's not talk about trans people because trans people are so
I don't think you're
atypical.
being reasonable.
Okay, cool.
at
So
all.
let's not. Okay, so since we're not going to draft a law that captures intersex people because they're so atypical, then we're also not going to draft a law that captures trans people because they're also atypical, correct?
No, I don't believe trans people are as atypical as you think.
What percentage of the population are trans people?
What percent do you believe you said have a female brain? What percentage do you think?
Yeah, so trans
actually
people
trans people have it?
represent about 1% of the population. It hovers anywhere from 0.5, 0.6 to about 1.3%, depending on like what.
But if this,
Yeah.
but is it fair to
Study you're
say if
looking
this
at.
continues that they're gonna represent more? Intersex people are not going to represent more. It's not going to, if this continues, then
It's
it'll be
always hovered
2%,
around
then
1%.
3%.
No, it's always hovered around 1% for how old are you?
Old enough to know that.
Are you in your
persists-
30s?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been around 1% even before you were born, and it's still around 1%. It hasn't increased. The lie that people are saying that it's just like exploded, no, it's not. It's just it hovers around 1%. It's very
So
rare
that's
for
a
somebody.
lie that-
It's very rare that somebody is like trans. It's about 1% of the population.
I think that it's going to become a larger percent of the population,
Based on what?
despite whatever you're saying, because you see like a social contagion going on here. I mean, when you see that happening, obviously, there could very easily become an increase, and then it becomes 2%, then 3%.
Why do you
You
think
know,
why do you think there was like a large increase in like ADHD diagnoses over the past like 40, 50 years?
You tell me.
The reason why is because we're able to identify it better. We didn't understand the nature of how like dopamine receptors between the synaptic gaps worked as well as we did back 50. Now we didn't understand it back then 50 years ago as we do it now. So we're better able to understand the nature behind that, and then the side effects and certain types of like behavioral traits that are associated with ADHD. We didn't understand it as well back then. So now that we understand it better, we're better able to classify it and better able to diagnose with something. So it doesn't mean that. So if like ADHD goes from some number X to some number percent of the population to X plus 5% of the population, that doesn't mean that just like it's a social contagion. That means that it's probably around that number. We're just better at capturing it. And I would say the same is true for trans people. It's gone up from about 0.5% to about 1% over the past like 40, 50 years. We haven't really like studied it prior to then because we didn't understand it that well. But now we're able to understand gender incongruence, being trans, and gender dysphoria a lot better. So we're a lot able to like better able to understand whether a kid or an adult is actually trans, and therefore we're like a more percentage of the population, but it still didn't go up by like 5%. It only went up by about 0.5%. So that's typical. And I don't know.
I actually believe it is a social contagion, and I do believe that it's going to go up.
What
And to
evidence do you
use
have
your
on
own
that?
logic, if we're identifying it more, then how come the numbers have stayed around 1%?
I told you it went up from about
If we
0.
can identify it so much better, then according to your logic, we should be seeing a lot more, right?
Yeah, I told you it went up from about 0.5% to about 1% over the past like maybe about 30, 40 years. So that's not a pretty big increase, is it? Now, do you have
and
any
I are
evidence?
not going to see eye to eye on this.
Well, because I'm
We're gonna
providing
see girl
evidence and
night.
you're not. So what evidence do you have that it's a social contagion?
I cannot produce
I know.
like a social contagion is not something. It's something that you
You just
witness.
feel.
It's something
Yeah,
that
you just feel that
like,
it's
for
happening.
example, Think about this. Think about this. It's like when people first started to get tattoos,
Hmm.
it wasn't cool. Then all of a sudden, people started to get tattoos, and it became more acceptable and more acceptable. Next thing you know, but I mean, how do I prove evidence that that tattoos were social contagion? I mean, we had that. That's over the span of 50 or 60 years until I could go, yes, look at that. It
Sure.
was a
Just
social
going based off
contagion.
our so just going based off our feelings is not reliable. If we did that, then
No,
I would
I'm
have.
going. I'm
There was a
basing it
there was
off
a
of.
YouGov poll where they asked like Americans, like conservatives, what percentage of the population do you think is trans? And they said it was like fucking like 30 or 40%, like nearly half of the population being trans. That is insane. If you ask like the average American, because it's like flooding our airwaves from like conservative media, and then like fucking left media has to counter that and stuff like that. If you ask like the average American, they think that being trans is about 20% of the population, when it's 1%. So how do you describe that discrepancy?
I can't speak for other people. I sure as heck don't think that it's as high as 30% or 20%. What I'm saying is it's things are a slippery slope, and women's spaces matter. We're not going to agree on this because I really believe that in another 10 years you're going to see a much bigger jump than what we have going
Yep,
on
that's
right
what
now.
people said about gay people about 20 years ago.
Well, we're going to have to agree to disagree.
Okay.
But you have a good night.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Bye bye.